What can you do to attract the man that you want into your life? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. Hello, my name is Matthew Coast, and welcome to my channel. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button to get more videos about how to attract the man in the relationship that you've always wanted to have. So if you're ready to hear what you can do to attract the man that you want, type yes into the chat and let's get started. So number one, the first thing that I want to talk about is actually stop giving time to men that are the wrong men. And so remember this phrase: stop overvaluing men who undervalue you. So I often have women who come to me and they're like angry at men, or they think that men just want to hook up or whatever. And I totally get that. And I understand what's going on there. And a lot of times I'll ask the woman that I'm talking to a bunch of questions about it. And one of the most common patterns that I see for women who feel this way, who feel they want to give up, who feel like guys just want to hook up with them, all that kind of stuff, is that they often their history, their dating history, is often getting with guys when they saw red flags, when they knew that something wasn't right. They got with that guy anyway because they wanted to feel good. They wanted this dating story to end and to be in the right relationship and for it all to just end. And so they just went with it even though they knew that it was wrong, and it always backfires in the end. So you want a man who is excited to be in a relationship with you. You want a man who's excited about you, who sees you and sees the wonderful, amazing, beautiful woman that you are. That's what you want. You don't stop overvaluing men who are undervaluing you. If you're here with us right now, tell us in the chat, say hi, and tell us where in the world you're watching this from. It's cool to see women from all over the world watching these live streams. So number two is trigger his biological drive. We all have a biological drive that almost instantly makes us feel attracted to someone when it is triggered, whether we want to be or not. And so one of the fastest and easiest ways to trigger this biological drive is through the senses. And if you've ever had your biological drive triggered, you know, right? It might be somebody that you know you shouldn't be into, that you know you shouldn't like, but you feel attracted to them anyway. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. One of the fastest and most instantaneous one is through the senses. And the first sense is sight. The first sense, there's two senses I'm going to talk about. The first one is sight, and this one usually drives him to chase and pursue you. Just visually, when he sees you, when he thinks about you, when he visualizes certain things in his mind about you and maybe about him together, those things can trigger his biological drive and make him start pursuing you and wanting to be with you and wanting to hug you and love you and cuddle you and kiss you and do other romantic things to you. And so how does this work? What are some things that you can do? One of the first things is using the color red. The color red, actually, what it does is it actually emphasizes this arousal, right? It's like arousal. Think about like your lips, right? A lot of women put on red lipstick and it's really attractive to guys. Why is that? Because it's simulating arousal. And one of the things that happens when we get excited about somebody is our lips actually start turning red because blood starts flowing through them. And so that's one of the things that you can do is you can wear red in a bunch of different ways. Another one is wearing clothes that are designed for your body. Men want to see your figure. They want to get excited about your figure. They want to see you, right? And it's one of those things that draws them to you. A guy, if he sees a woman's figure, it can trigger his brain automatically to start moving towards it, to start chasing, to start pursuing, to start wanting that, right? And it's really, really powerful. And so the second one we're going to be talking about is smell. And so smell creates some of the strongest emotions in our mind. I dated this woman back in my mid 20s who used to wear vanilla all the time, and everything was vanilla that she wore and had everywhere. And even to this day, it's been almost 15 years right, since I dated her, and still to this day when I smell vanilla, I think of her, right? And I feel good because those are the associations that I have with her, is all these feelings, right, that come up when I smell vanilla. And smell can be a really, really powerful thing. It can calm people down. It can make them excited. It can make them feel warm. It can make them feel at home. It can make them remember you and think about you even when you're not around. Smell is one of the most powerful things out there in terms of the senses. So you don't want to smell like poo. Don't smell like poo. Instead, have a distinct scent that he can love and makes him think of you. No poo smelling. Okay. So, like most good things in life, I want to mention this. The magic is in the middle here. So, a lot of times I'll tell women about different things, and the one I like jump to one side or the other, like, oh, smell. And then they're like, shh, just putting perfume all over them. You don't want to do that, right? You want it to be subtle, right? Do things in the middle. The magic is in the middle. Do a little bit, but not too much. So number three, we're going to be talking about is showing some interest. And so there's a big myth out there that I hear a lot about. And it's this thing where there's these books written about it and there's all this stuff. And they say, do not show interest in a man, right? Don't reach out to him. Don't connect with him. Don't tell him you like him. If you show interest, it'll make him lose interest. And that is false. That is false. Now, if you're over, right, if you go to these extremes that I've been talking about avoiding, and you're like, oh, I saw you and I knew you were the one for me, right? That will definitely turn him off, especially if he doesn't know you yet. If he thinks the same way about you, it might be exciting for him. But if he doesn't, you don't want to go to those extremes, right? You don't want to go to the extreme of doing nothing, because the extreme of doing nothing only works for really aggressive or really, really confident guys, oftentimes players, people like that, because those are the guys that are like, hey, I'm going to do this. I don't care. Or, the creepy stalker type who's just like, I love you and I want you to be with me, right? And you don't want either one of those things. And so you want to show some interest. Most guys out there, they've actually done studies on this, and they found that 65% of men will not approach a woman unless he gets some kind of indication from her that this is going to go well, right? Most guys are waiting for some kind of sign. They want a sign from God, a sign from the universe that says, come and approach me, and you can give them that sign. How do you give him that sign? Just lead him on, right? Just if you want him to chase or pursue, give him a target to go towards. Give him a target, and that target is you. You are the target. And the way that you do that is there's a bunch of different things. You can make eye contact with them, right? If you're like trying to meet a guy or something, you give eye contact. That's a really, really powerful one. Another one is just smiling. Eye contact, a smile, looking away, looking back, smiling. That kind of thing can trigger it. And sometimes it won't if he's timid or shy or whatever, and that's fine too. Or if maybe he's not that interested in you, that's fine too. But those are things that you can do. Also, flirting is a good and powerful thing. Let him know that you're interested in him. Let him know that you have some interest, and then give them space. That's what you want to do. You want to avoid the extremes. The magic is in the middle. You don't want to jump all over them, and you don't want to do nothing. If you get what I'm talking about right now, type yes into the chat. If you don't get what I'm talking about, go ahead and ask whatever question you have, and I will get to your questions here in just a minute. So number four is playfulness. If couples continued to date each other like they did in the beginning, there wouldn't be an end. Have you ever seen one of those couples that have been together for like 40, 50, 60 years? If you've ever had the privilege of meeting some of those couples, which I have, fortunately, what you'll find is that one of the things that they still do even now, and one of the things that keeps them together is being playful, right? Is playing with each other, is messing with each other, is having fun with each other. That's what keeps the attraction alive. That's what creates attraction, and that's what keeps attraction. They have playfulness. Playfulness creates attraction. It takes someone out of their head and into their emotions. Remember, if you stay in your head, the connection is dead. If you get in your heart, the connection can start. I don't know. That was the best rhyming one that I could come up with. If you have something better, let me know. Number five is positivity. So men get into relationships because of how they feel about a woman. He won't remember everything about your date. He might not remember everything that you've told him or whatever, right? But if you can connect with him and make him feel good around you, it'll make him feel like you're the right woman, right? He'll remember how he feels. Men remember how they feel. So if you don't want to see a guy again, just make him feel really bad. Uh, and but if you want to pique his curiosity and get him excited about you, make him feel good when he's around you. Over time, people begin to associate different emotions to a person. That's why if you like argue with somebody or you have fights with somebody all the time, just that person's name in your mind. Like if you have somebody in your head where you're like, this person, we get into fights all the time, he just drives me crazy, right? And then somebody says that person's name, it can trigger that emotion because we associate different feelings to people, to their faces, to their names, to everything. And so you want him to associate good emotions to you. A lot of times women will do things because they want to get a guy to feel something. And so they'll trigger negative emotions because it works really, really well to get a guy to actually show emotion. But if you're doing that all the time where it's negative, what ends up happening is he'll end up associating negativity to you, and then when he thinks of you, he doesn't want to be around you, and then that's the beginning of the end for your relationship. You don't want that with your partner. Remember, positive attitude is more attractive, negative attitude is unattractive. It doesn't mean you can't ever be negative and you have to be smiling and rainbows and excitement all the time. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. But if you're negative all the time, it's going to be a problem, right? The magic is in the middle. Remember that. If you remember nothing else, the magic is in the middle. Extremes are where the problems are. The magic is in the middle. So number 6 is kindness. Studies show that men have rated kindness as the number 1 most attractive trait that a woman can have, and it makes him feel like what they said about it was that it makes him feel like she is more feminine and interesting. And so we're not even talking about being kind to him, right? You don't even have to, I'm not saying you have to be kind to him, right? Although that's probably a good idea, is being kind to him. But, it's one of those things, like if you're the kind of woman who, like when an old lady is crossing the street, you like pick her up and you put her back on the side that she came from, or there's a waiter coming by and you like stick your foot out and trip the waiter as they're walking by, or, you do any of that kind of stuff. Maybe you might want to wait until like the second or third date before you start doing that kind of stuff with the guy. I'm joking, right? Don't do that stuff at all. Don't do it at all. If you want him to run away from you, come across as mean. If you want him to be more attracted to you for something long term, come across as kind. I want to mention too, I'm actually doing a 4-hour workshop coming up on how to attract the man that you want into your life. If you're interested, go to attractyourforeverman.com. There's a scrolling ticker at the bottom of this screen. You can check that out. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have a great time there, and you will learn some awesome things. So number seven is sense of humor. So both men and women, they've done studies on this as well. Both men, and if you don't know, I'm a researcher, and that's what I do, is I do research on what works and what doesn't work in attraction and connection and relationships. So both men and women, they found that both men and women value a sense of humor very, very highly in a potential partner. There's a big difference, though, between what men and women look for. Women look for men who make them laugh, and men look for women who think that he's funny, right? So allow yourself to be won over by his humor, right? You don't need to be funny. You don't need to make him laugh. You should be laughing at his jokes, though. If he's telling jokes, if he's being funny, and this can also play into being playful, right? You're being playful, and you're like playing slap and tickle with each other, and you're like, you're right, and he's so funny, and it's fun, and that's flirting. That's being playful. You can do that without learning any lines, without learning any techniques, just coming from a place where you're being playful and you're having fun and you're being humorous. There's really two different ways that women act usually on a date or when connecting with a man. And one way is kind of like this interviewer thing where they're like, they got their checklist and they're like checking things off a list and scribbling things out. Let me ask you this question. Do you, like, what is your relationship to your mother? Right. And then there's another type of woman. The other kind of woman is this woman that's like connecting with a guy. And it's this other kind of woman that's really attractive. It's this interviewer type of woman that's not attractive because you're in your head, right? This one's in your heart, and the connection will start. Yeah, I know you like it. I know you like that one. So you don't need to be funny if you laugh at his jokes. Just practice laughing at yourself, laughing at life, laughing at jokes that guys tell. Just have fun and laugh. All right, and I've got number 8. I've got an 8th one here. I know that you want to hear about the 8th one. I'm here to over deliver for you. So number 8 is having a high value attitude. Don't be easy to get. Be worth it to get. Have standards and boundaries. A man will not value you if he can walk all over you. A man cannot value you if he walks all over you. Men value things that they work for and earn. So be worth it. Have a high value attitude. Like, you value yourself, you value your life, you value your time. And you're not just giving all these things away to any man. You're only giving it to a man who's showing you the right things and moving towards you and wants to create something with you. And so if you're interested in attending my event, if you're having problems with attracting the wrong guys, or you want to attract somebody into your life who's really great, you want to get into a committed, lasting relationship with a high quality man, make sure that you check out my event at attractyourforeverman.com. We've got that one coming up here. So what questions do you have? Let's go over questions real quick. See what you have. Lots of people that are excited. I'm excited about you being here. So thanks for being here. Let's see. I am going to throw the Attract Your Forever Man link into the chat so you can go check that out. And so we've got lots of yeses. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for catching me live. Thanks for being here. Lots of people. Lots of people. Lots of people all over the world. From Missouri, huh? Wow, Thailand. Austin, Texas here. Yeah, I was there not too long ago. Mississippi. All right, what do we got? All right, if you have a question, here's what you need to do. If you want to ask a question, make sure you type something in and then put a question mark at the end of it. That way I know that it's a question. Sheng says, hi, Matt. It's nice to see you here. Well, it's nice to see you too, Sheng. Thanks for being here. Sheng says, I would like to know what makes a man insecure. Thanks and have a nice time. Well, there's a lot of things that make a man insecure. Usually what it has to do with is some kind of childhood thing, some kind of past thing, where a lot of times it comes from feeling like they're not enough for their father or for their mother, and they tried to get love and attention from this parent that they had, but the parent wasn't doing it in a way that makes sense to him, or they had an event that happened that they created a meaning out of that made them think that they're like, oh, my dad doesn't love me, or I'm all alone in the world, or my mom abandoned me, or maybe a combination of all of those things. And then they come to relationships, and things happen similar in relationships where women abandon them, or all these other things that just justify their own belief structure that they already have in their head. And they take that childhood programming that they developed and they bring it into their life, and they bring it into their dating. And so they come in with a wall up, and they're insecure because their mom didn't love them when they were a child, and they didn't get hugs from their dad, and nobody said I love you in their family, and everybody's getting divorced, and their mom went away for 3 months on a camping trip, and he felt like she abandoned him and all that kind of stuff. And he comes up and he puts that onto you, right? And he's like, oh, I don't want to get abandoned, I don't want you to abuse me, I don't want to, right? And it happens to all of us, right? And this stuff comes for all of us, right? We all have something like this. Most people have something like this in their lives, some kind of insecurity, some kind of things, right? And past relationships reinforce that. And then what ends up happening is they bring that to you, and they're like, other women have cheated on me, or other women have abandoned me, or I tried to do right. Most of the things that women talk about in our community are the same things that guys are having challenges with. I gave everything to her, and she took me for granted, and she cheated on me, and she left me, and all those kinds of things, right? I did everything to become the right man, and these women don't care. Or I thought if I had a great job, maybe women would then like me, and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I mean, it's a very complicated and delicate issue there, Shang. I hope that answers your question. Mandy says there's no magic in the poo. It's true, there's no magic in the poo. Vasilia says you are 35, right? No, I am 40. I am 40 years old. Eclair says you're wearing one of my favorite colors. Well, I'm wearing one of my favorite colors. We have so much in common, Eclair. Thank you. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, Joanna. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here. Dylan says, finally here with you live. How are you doing? I am doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you? Tell us in the chat. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? What kind of questions you got for me? What questions you got? Let's see. Chioma says, all men are not really that same. That's true. Not all men are the same. That is very true. Facebook user says, true valuing your is when you're saying how you feel, regardless if they get upset or not. Yeah, I mean, you want to also kind of, make sure that you're not like hurting other people needlessly, right? People want to feel, valued by you, right? So there's valuing yourself and there's valuing other people. And one of the things that is going on right now is that men and women right now in our culture are starting to learn about this valuing ourselves thing. And one of the problems with it is what I was talking about earlier with kind of these extremes, right? People go to extremes. And so when a lot of people start valuing themselves, start learning about valuing themselves and taking care of themselves and all those kinds of things, a lot of times they will start neglecting other people and start treating other people not very well because they're going to an extreme, right? And it takes time of going back and forth and learning about how to connect with a human being before they really start doing it in any sort of middle ground that's actually healthy and productive to a real relationship. Hello, hello, hello. Me says your videos always make me laugh out loud in the middle of the night. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're laughing out loud. Belen says, hi, Matt. If someone is in a committed relationship, how long should the woman wait for the man to ask her to marry her? If you're in a committed relationship, you should know by like the 1 year mark. If you're going more than like a year and a half of being together without some kind of real discussion about where this is going, if you want it to really go somewhere, then that's what you need to do. And if he's not talking about it, then that's a problem. I mean, realistically, you should start talking about these things earlier on when you start dating somebody, maybe not on the first date, but sometime when you start getting to know them, just finding out what they think about marriage and asking them about their viewpoints and opinions on that, so that you can see where they are, how they feel about marriage itself, right? Because if you're with a guy, even if you're in a committed relationship and you want marriage and he doesn't, and you guys have been together for 6 months, a year, all of a sudden you run into something that could very well be a deal breaker for both of you, where he might not want marriage and you do, or you don't want marriage and he does, or whatever. And so it's really a good time you really want to start asking these questions and finding out what's going on and what their value structure is from close to the beginning, near the beginning. Does that make sense? Belen's. Priya says, I am going through the same thing like what you are describing. 16 months with him. I haven't got relationship title or no sex too. He asked me to be patient. I am confused to stay or walk away. I'm not sure what you're saying here. Is this a person that you're meeting up with? You guys are seeing each other, but you're not hooking up, and you've been doing this for a while? I mean, if you've been hanging out with a guy for 16 months, it's time to have real conversations with him about what's going on between the two of you. If you want something between the two of you, it sounds like you're just friends. And if you're just friends and that's all he wants with you, then, you need to find a guy who wants something romantic with you. That's what you need. Right? Just doing the whole friendship thing forever. It's one of the reasons why guys hate the friend zone. I get women that ask all the time, why do guys, don't want to be friends first? Because they're likely to be in that place forever, right? If you're friends with a guy and you think it's going somewhere and he doesn't, that can be a huge problem. Ranja says, how do I get him to commit to us? Well, if you want him to commit to you in a relationship, I have an entire program about that. It's called the Devotion Switch. And you can check it out at commitmentconnection.com/devotion. Angela says, why do men chase, finally get your attention, and then run after realizing you were perfect for him? Well, there's a whole bunch of different reasons why that can happen. It could be that he has insecurities and he doesn't want to actually get into a relationship, right? One of the big insecurities that a lot of guys have has to do with their money, with their bank account, right? Because a lot of women out there want a man with money, who does well, who's ambitious, who's making money, who's doing all those things. And so, if he doesn't feel like he is in the right place to be in a real relationship, a lot of times guys will run from that. And, a lot of guys out there are scared to meet a great woman before they're financially ready to be in a relationship, because they know a lot of women out there want a provider. They want a man who's going to take care of them, who's got money, who can do those things. And, there's a whole bunch of different things that could have happened. He might have set a bunch of precedents that he couldn't fulfill, right? Sometimes guys will do that where they talk about taking you around the world, and they'll take you out to all these dinners and do all these things and throw all this money around like, yo, I got all this money, right? And they're like, I'm gonna spend this money on you, girl, right? And then they find out, and then they start like sobering up a little bit, and they're like, what am I doing? Like, I'm going broke right now. Like, I can't do this. She thinks I'm like some big money baller, and I've been acting a fool because I've been so attracted to her that I'm just like throwing all logic and reason and sense out the window and pursuing this thing. And so what ends up happening is that a lot of times guys will leave for that, or they'll leave. There could be a bunch of different reasons why this happens. But regardless, what you want to do is you don't want to take any man seriously. Don't take any man who isn't in moving towards a committed relationship with you seriously. Don't take a guy who's texting you seriously. We had these women in our community recently who are talking about how they like were on these dating apps, and they were connecting with this guy, and they were doing it for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden the guy cancels the date that they were going to have. They've never even met before, right? And they're like freaking out and losing their minds, and they feel really bad. And it's like, well, you don't even really know this guy, right? Like, don't overvalue that. It goes to step number one. Don't overvalue men who are undervaluing you, right? And what does it mean to be valued, right? Saying a whole bunch of things over a text message or whatever isn't valuing you, right? Doing things, make sure his actions, words and his actions are in alignment, and he's moving towards you, he's meeting up with you, and he's doing this consistently over time. One of the biggest problems that we have right now in our culture, in our society, is that we live in this social media world where everybody's like, everything's dinging all the time, and this is dinging and that's dinging, and my phone's dinging, and I send this message and somebody reaches out to me immediately, and so why doesn't he text me back? I sent him this message and I want a message from him back, right? And so we like order things, and it flies to us with a drone and shows up in one day or a few hours or whatever, right? And so we've gotten into this world of like this immediate gratification where we think everything should happen just immediately, and we're treating our relationships like that as well. And the truth is that you don't even really, most people, when you meet most people, you don't even really know who they are for the first 3 months of knowing them, right? And people are getting into these relationships. Women are hooking up with guys after the first date or the second date or something like that. And then they're like, why? Well, like he disappeared and he's not the man that I thought he was, right? And people can fake who they are for a very, very long time. My cousin is married to this woman who he said completely faked who she was for like a 15 years or something like that, 10 years or something, and then when they got married, she completely changed who she was. And I hear that from women all the time as well, who get into situations like that. And so you don't want to overvalue guys, right? That's the point, right? Like that, those might be some extreme examples right there, but you don't want to overvalue men, and you don't want to get attached to men too quickly. This is why it's so important to date in abundance. It's why it's so important to use the principles that I talk about in the Forever Woman program. And, because that's what helps make sure that you get into a good relationship and aren't overvaluing every single guy that you meet, right? And it'd be great if you just met a guy, and this guy that you met the first time and the only guy that you ever met, and he was perfect for you, up off your feet, and he took you out, and you guys just went on your merry way, and you're just frolicking through the fields and just loving on each other, right? And just, oh, you're just amazing, and it went forever, right? And that can happen, right? It can happen. But for most people, it doesn't, especially in this culture that we're in right now, because lots of people are in abundance. There's more abundance now than there's ever been before in human history that we know of. And so that I totally went off on a tangent there, Angela, but I hope that answered your question. Hello. Sally says, Is it ever acceptable to both be working on yourselves whilst in the relationship, or should it always be done before it? Working on yourself, Sally, is a never ending thing. It's not like you're going to work on yourself for, a couple months and then you're done, right? It's done. It's over with. Like, think about it like working out, right? You go to the gym, for a month and you're done working out for the rest of your life. No, you have to go for the rest of your life if you want to continually stay strong and stay healthy and stay powerful. And it's the same thing with working on yourself. There's, generally speaking, there's 3 or 4 aspects of working on yourself. And those 3 or 4 aspects of working your stuff never go away, right? And you're always working on yourself and it's always happening. The question is, where are you in this process, right? Where are you in the process of self-actualization? If you come to a relationship and you are just a total train wreck and, like everything the guy does, you're constantly searching for clues that he's cheating on you, even though you have no evidence that he's cheating on you, and you're harassing him because you think he's probably cheating on you, even though he's not, right? Because it's just your own insecurities that are coming up of feeling like you're not enough and that you won't be actually loved by him and that maybe he's faking it and all these other things that come up for people. And so, yeah, you're always working on yourself, and ideally you're working on yourself through your entire life. And so the answer is no. And there's probably a place that you want to be, a place where you're not just totally, where it's not so, your insecurities and your issues aren't so distracting that you can't functionally be in a relationship. You can't functionally have friendships and relationships of any kind, because those issues are so in your face and such a massive problem. And that's really where you want to be, Sally. Does that make sense, Sally? Does that make sense? Vernal says, what if you had a great relationship but broke up and now he's traveling with ex-wife? Do I have a chance? Well, maybe not. It's hard to say without knowing a lot more details about your situation there, Vernal. However, if the guy left and he's off with somebody else, just leave him alone for now. Work on yourself, build your abundance, build yourself up, get yourself into a good situation. I'm a little bit sick today, so sorry if I am wiping my nose and stuff. I'm a little bit sick. So so what you want to do is get detached from him, right? And get back into a situation where you're feeling strong and you're feeling whole and you're, building abundance of connection and options and all those kinds of things. And then if you want to reach out or he ends up coming back at some point, then you're coming from a strong place. If you want to have a chance, Vernell, you need to come from a strong place. If you're not going to have a chance, then come from a place of desperation and trying to make it work and, overvaluing him when he's undervaluing you. You want a guy who's not going back to his ex-wife. You want a guy who's certain about you, who knows that you're amazing and special and exactly what he wants. You want a guy who's moving towards you and who just wants you and just wants to have you in his life. You deserve that. And so I don't think you should it can be difficult, right? It can be difficult, especially after a breakup. It can be difficult to move on and get yourself back together. But that's really what you have to do, is just build yourself back up. I hope that helps. Renette says, dating a guy for 4 months now. He's a workaholic. He says he says he is interested and we get along very well, but not ready to be exclusive. How do I get him to be exclusive or committed with me? Well, Renette, what you're doing right now is what I was talking about earlier, which is overvaluing a man who is undervaluing you, right? He is either not ready, or he doesn't see you as somebody that he wants to be in an exclusive, committed situation with. And so what you need to do is stop giving him committed, exclusive benefits when he's not agreeing to be in a situation where he should be getting those benefits. And so what you want to do is just stop doing that immediately and completely, and let him know that you really like him and that what you want is a committed relationship, exclusive committed relationship. And if he says that he doesn't want that, then that's great. And you can wish him well and tell him that you will, hopefully, if he can come back if at some point he decides to change his mind. And if you're still single, then you can talk about it. And if not, then hopefully you end up finding a better man who actually wants a real committed relationship with you. Right. This is exactly what I was talking about before, where a lot of times women will be like, oh, guys just want to hook up, and they get into these situations. My guess is that you probably had some clues that this guy didn't want something real from an early stage. And if you didn't, then you need to start asking different questions and working on, the way that you're connecting and communicating from that standpoint and screening standpoint. Because what's happening now is now you're attached to a guy who doesn't want exclusivity and doesn't want something real. And that happens, right? People have done that before. Lots of people have done that before. We have a whole community of women that have done that. And that's the worst situation that you can be in. And so what you want to do is break that tie, start taking your power back. And, if he wants to step up to the plate, that's great. And if he doesn't, then you need to decide that you deserve more than that. You deserve a guy who sees you and wants to commit to you and wants an exclusive relationship with you. If that's what you want, that's what you need to focus on and decide and make verbal and take a stand for. Take a stand for your own value. Take a stand for what you want. Start believing that your desires and your needs are just as important as his are. Because that's the only way that you're going to make sure that you get into a good situation in the future. If you don't, you'll continue in this pattern of getting with guys who don't want something real and trying to force him to be the right guy. And if I could just fix him and make him, and all that kind of stuff. And that's the worst position you can possibly be in. The best position to be in is a position where you have guys pursuing you and you are setting the terms. You are making them compete for your time, attention, and love. That's valuing yourself. And that's the situation that you want to be in, Renette. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense, Renette. Near Mean says, learn to appreciate what you have before time makes you appreciate what you had. Yeah. It's a good saying there, Nermeen. Good saying there. Deborah says, how do I change red flags into green flags? My red flags cannot be changed as it has to do with family and health. Well, it depends on what you mean by red flags, right? So if you're talking about your family, like your family is toxic and all that kind of stuff, what you want to do is adopt a new family. You want to adopt friends who act as your family and start getting around healthier and better people. And once you come from a place, once you're in a place where you're strong and you're healthy and you're whole, you can go back to your family and you can be like, hey, and do some work with them and connect with them and let go with them and come from this new place, this new transformed best version of yourself, Deborah, that you are. And once you come from that, then it'll be a lot easier because it's like, hey, yeah, I grew up with whatever issue I have, whatever situation I came from. But now I have a much better viewpoint on life. Maybe I love my dad, but we just don't get along, and that's okay. It's okay. It's okay, right? Like, guys out there aren't that most guys aren't looking for the perfect woman, right? They're not looking for a woman who has no flaws and has completely no baggage and all that kind of stuff. When guys meet women, they know that there's going to be some issues there. The question is, what are those issues and how do those issues impact the relationship that we're going to have moving forward? If those issues are uh, problems that you are in a situation where you're doing things that are creating all these problems, then that's a problem, right? That's a red flag. If the issues are things that you're overcoming and you're working through and you're getting past and you're learning to build better connections with people and you've become a healthy whole human being because you've gone through those issues onto the other side, then it's not as big of a deal, right? The big deal is when you've got these issues and you just let them be issues and you're like, oh, I've got this thing where I'm whatever, and that's just me. That's who I am, right? And it's like, no, that's not who you are. That's something that you picked up along your journey of life that instead of letting go of, which is what you should have done with it, you attached yourself to it and you latched onto it and you held on to it and you made it your home, right? You make it your home. If you make it your home, it becomes more comfortable to you than going out and growing and becoming a better version of yourself. And then once that becomes your home, you always go back to it. You go back to it over and over and over again. And it's just a never-ending problem. And so what you want to make a new home is a place where you go that you're feeling comfortable. That's a better place for you to be than this old home, right? And instead, and distance yourself from that old identity. That's one of the things that we do in the Attract Your Forever Man program. Is I talk about distancing yourself from this old identity that you had and stepping into this new identity, this identity of who you want to be, right? Because the things that we think that we are, that's one of the problems. Like, of course we don't want to twist ourselves into a pretzel and pretend we're someone we're not in order for a guy to like us, right? But what you also don't want to do is justify horrible behavior that you have or insecurities or issues that you have and saying, oh, that's just who I am, when in reality, that's not who you are, right? That's not who you are. Really, saying, hey, you should just be yourself. Like, it feels good. And, there's some truth there. But the reality is that most of us don't know who we are. We don't really know who we are. What we know is all of these things that we've gotten that we've pulled into our lives over the history, the course of our lives. And we've taken those things on and some of them are good and some of them are bad. And we just go, oh, well, that's just who I am, and there is like a who you are, but that's something that's a lot deeper than your behaviors or your actions or your insecurities or any of those kinds of things. So that was another long-winded one, Deborah, but I hope that makes sense. You just want to work through your stuff and just, be honest and be real about it. That's what most people are craving right now is people being real. We live in this Instagram society of fake everything, right? It's like, oh, see all these photos of me on Instagram of me smiling. And, that's one of the reasons why I got rid of Instagram is because I met all these people and they're like, oh, you're not keeping up with your Instagram and you got to show this. And, oh, your Instagram looks like that. And it's just like, who cares, Like I am so much more than these silly photos that I put on Instagram. And, uh, we are a much bigger thing. We're a growing and continuing process. And people that are mature, people that have gone through life, they get that. They get that. So let's see. What else do we have? Hawa says, hi, Matt. After 3 months of knowing each other, if so sudden guy said, I'm happy with you, but just not with myself. So I need my own time for a while. Should I wait or move on? You should never, ever, ever wait. You should never wait. Don't wait. Move on. And if the guy comes back, that's great. And if he doesn't come back, That's fine too. You'll find a great guy in your life, Hawa. Hawa, I love your photo. You look great. You are going to find an amazing guy who's going to value you and love you and cherish you. And this whole thing where you have a guy who needs time for himself, that's great. Give him some time for himself. Just move on. And if he comes back and you're still single, that's great. You guys can talk about it again. And if he comes back and you found your forever man, that's fine too, because you're moving on with your life and you're not sitting around waiting for some guy who doesn't know what's going on. Does that make sense? Let me know if it makes sense in the chat. If it makes sense, type yes in the chat. Dee Dee says, when I overvalue a man, I am undervaluing my own self-worth. You take such good care of us. Thanks for the great advice and reminders. Worth listening to again and sharing. Well, thank you, Dee Dee. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you recognizing great advice because takes one to know one, right? You're smart. You're very obviously a very smart, intelligent, and amazing person there, Dee Dee. So thanks for being here. Anonymous Facebook user says, how do you bring up the issues when they are not paying attention to you? When you have become their last priority and everything else is priority at their snap of other people's fingers? Well, what you need to do, anonymous Facebook user, is start making yourself a priority. That's what you need to do, is stop focusing on what he's doing and what he's not doing and all that kind of stuff, and start focusing on yourself and what you're doing and what you're not doing and what you need to be doing to make sure that you are a priority for yourself and taking care of yourself. And what will end up happening, usually in most scenarios when you start doing that, is that he will start going like, what's going on here? She's totally different than what she's been before. All of a sudden, she's not focusing on me. She's not worrying about me. She's focusing on herself and she's ignoring me. Like, what's going on here? And that's the time to have that conversation. You want to come from a position of, at the very least, a position of power. There's something that I talk about called a position of power, and it's coming from a place of being strong and whole and confident and having options and not needing anything from him, being more willing to walk away from this if it's not going to serve your needs and who you are than being attached to it. And that's the position, that's the best position that you can come from in a situation like this, where you're valuing yourself, where you're putting yourself into a position where you're ready to get what you want. You're ready to walk away from something that's not going the way that you want it to go. That's the best position that you can be in, because that's when people start going, oh, wait, what's going on here? They're serious about this. They're valuable. They're, attractive. They have all these things going on for themselves. I need to figure out what's going on here, because all of a sudden it's not what it used to be. And they'll try to pull you back into what you used to be. And you don't want to do that. You want to come from a position of power. That's the best thing that you can do there, anonymous Facebook user. Focus on putting yourself into a position of power. Get into abundance of connection. Get into a place where you're strong and healthy and whole, that you feel that you're starting to detach from him, start creating a life of your own, start living that life, and that's completely separate from the relationship. Start making yourself a priority. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. Tina says, my narc ex left 7 weeks ago because I don't do it for him anymore. He is already in a new relationship. I'm terrified of attracting another narc. Any advice? Yeah, Tina, what you ought to do is just look at your situation and say, what do I normally do? What's the pattern that I normally get into? And I have free thing here that you can go grab. It's called The 7 Signs That He's Toxic for You. And these are things that you can look at and look for if, to find out if a guy's toxic or not. And from the very beginning. And so go to 7toxicsigns.com and check that out. There's a lot of things that you can do there. And that is definitely one of them. That's definitely one of them. All right. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Carlene says, hi, Matt. I'm from Laurel, whatever city MD is. Thank you for talking about LDR. I have been in an LDR for 3+ years. He's military. We talk about marriage, our goals, our future, our union. Always. Thank you, Matt. Well, you are very welcome. And thank you for being here, Carlene. Thank you for being here. Jay Jordan says, Matt, I've been communicating with a man for about a year off and on, but we haven't met because he lives 3 hours away. I don't want an LDR. Yesterday, he told me he wants to come up and meet me. Should I? Well, I mean, that's a good question. Should you? I mean, you'd have to. My suggestion is that you don't get into an LDR unless there is some kind of conversation about one person moving towards the other person. That's my suggestion, is don't get into an LDR at all unless there is a clear indication that one person is moving at some point towards the other person. So that's my suggestion, Jay Jordan. Good question. All right. So, one of the biggest problems that a lot of women face here when they're coming to these live streams is that they aren't really valuing themselves. That's like the biggest kind of that's the biggest topic. That's the biggest thing that we deal with when I'm talking to clients, when things come up, because a lot of these problems that you have will go away when you start valuing yourself. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to end on the Queen's mantra like we do all the time. So take a deep breath in. Go ahead, take a deep breath in and breathe out. Take another deep breath in and breathe out. Take one last deep breath in and just breathe out any stress, any worry, any frustration, any feelings of not being enough, any concerns, anything that you need to get rid of. Just let go right now. Just let it all go. Just shake it out. Let it go. Just let it go. And if you're not familiar with the Queen's mantra, it's something that we say 3 times every time we say it. And are you ready? Are you ready to do it? Here we go. I am valuable, I am worthy, and I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable, I am worthy, I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable, I am worthy, and I deserve to be cherished. And I want you to leave here today just remembering that you are worth getting into the kind of relationship that you want. You deserve it. It's something that you deserve as a human being. You were put on this planet to share your gifts. You have something to share with the world. You have something to learn about yourself and your life. And it almost always comes down to value. It comes down to valuing yourself and loving yourself. And so leaving here, and if I want to mention also again the attractyourforeverman.com. Go check it out if you want to attract a great guy into your life. If you're serious about getting into a committed relationship with an amazing man, attracting a great guy to you, make sure you check it out and leave here today just remembering your value, remembering your worth, remembering that you deserve a man who looks at you and loves you and knows you and sees you for who you are and wants to cherish you and wants to value you, wants to care for you, wants to take care of you, wants to love on you. You deserve that. You deserve it. Remember that. Remember that. And so I will speak with you again soon. Have a good night, good day, good evening. And always remember, you are worth it. Take care, and I will see you.